Spa-Francorchamps has always been a racetrack of stark contrast. Thrilling and treacherous, beloved and controversial, this high-speed circuit is renowned for its excitement, its thrill, and yet its reputation for danger is equally well earned. Despite this, it remains a favourite among drivers and race fans alike. Now, in July 2023, Motorsport was struck by a tragic blow when Formula Regional driver Dilano van Hoff lost his life in a crash at Spa-Francorchamps. The accident occurred at the beginning of the Kemmel Straight and was eerily similar to the Formula 2 tragedy that claimed Anthoine Hubert's life in 2019. Spa is a tightrope, and even the slightest mistake here can mean death. But was the track always like this? Spa-Francorchamps was built from the vision of newspaper magnate Jules Letier, who aimed to resurrect the La Meuse Cup, a race suspended due to the First World War. To bring this vision to life, racing driver Henry Langlouis van Oppen and the mayor of Spa, Baron Joseph de Crachu, were enlisted to design a new circuit. They masterfully combined three roads connecting the towns of Spa-Francorchamps, Malmedy and Stavelot, in the process crafting a track that would soon become legendary. In 1920, the original Spa-Francorchamps circuit emerged as a sprawling 14.9-kilometre masterpiece, featuring many elements still present in the modern layout. Iconic sections like Blanchimont, La Source, the Kemmel Straight and Les Combes made their debut, alongside Eau Rouge and Raidillon. Back then, Eau Rouge and Raidillon were linked by a challenging hairpin, adding to the circuit's already formidable reputation. Interestingly, the track's inaugural race in 1921 was a flop, with only one driver signing up. The event was swiftly replaced by a motorcycle race that drew a more impressive 23 competitors. By 1922, the first official Belgian Grand Prix took place, and it was won by Baron de Tournecourt-Bruyère. The track then continued to evolve, with a 24-hour race held in 1924 following the addition of a timing booth and press stand. Antonio Ascari clinched victory at the European GP held there in 1925. Now, a major milestone came in 1939 when the extremely notorious Raidillon corner came to life. Before this, the customs hairpin had been in place, but it was removed to link Eau Rouge with the new Raidillon, resulting in the steep 17% incline that makes it one of the most challenging corners in motorsport history. The track as a whole is a beast of its own making, with its steep elevation changes, the daunting Raidillon Hill and the infamous Eau Rouge corner, a small tight left-hand bend nestled at the bottom of the hill. Spa is a nightmare come to life for some drivers and a dream come true for the others. The sweeping high-speed corners of Pouhon and the intricate flowing sections of Fagnes most certainly contribute to its reputation for demanding skill and precision. It's a place where memorable racing moments are born, but also moments of fear and caution, and sometimes mortal danger. Now, adding to the challenge, the weather at Spa is notoriously fickle and uncertain. The conditions can shift unpredictably, leaving some parts of the track soaked while others remain dry. This uneven grip makes navigating the circuit a gamble, where the transition from one section to another can become perilously tricky. Even over the last few safe years, there's been a whole host of mishaps in wet weather at the circuit, but none as bad what's been extremely common throughout its history. During World War II, Spa became well known in December 1944 when Hitler sent his troops into the Ardennes to push back the Allied forces. This attack, called the Battle of the Bulge, failed as American forces stopped the Germans on the old racing track. Close to the track, there's a memorial for American prisoners of war who were killed by German soldiers in Malmedy. After the war, the Belgium GP was re-established in 1947. The first official Formula 1 season took place in 1950, with 7 Grand Prix events around the world. Silverstone hosted the opening race, while Spa hosted the 5th race of the season. The 35-lap race at Spa was won by Juan Manuel Fangio, marking his second series victory. Safety was minimal, with racers competing on a track that was barely different from regular public roads, except for a few strategically placed hay bales. As speeds increased and the margin for error disappeared, fatalities became inevitable. the list of deaths grew alarmingly long. In 1958, Archie Scott Brown crashed and died at the same clubhouse corner where pre-war Mercedes-Benz driver Richard Seaman had lost his life. In the 1950s, Spa-Francorchamps had already seen its share of tragedy, but 1916 marked the track's darkest chapter. That year was a grim testament to the perils of high-speed racing on this infamous circuit. Now, during practice for the 1960 race, the track claimed its first victims. Mike Taylor and Sterling Moss both experienced catastrophic car failures while travelling at over 241 km/h. Taylor's steering column weld broke, hurling him into the trees and leaving him paralysed. Moss, on the other hand, suffered severe injuries when his rear axle failed, his legs and nose were broken in the violent crash. But the real tragedy struck on race day. On lap 20, Chris Bristow collided with another car, sending him into the barriers with devastating force. The impact was so severe that Bristow was ejected from his car and his lifeless body lay on the track for the remainder of the race. Drivers had to weave and swerve around the motionless figure as they continued their laps. As if that wasn't enough, disaster struck again less than 5 laps later. Alan Stacey was struck in the head by a bird while racing near where Bristow had died. Losing control, Stacey crashed into the trees at 225 km/h. The car exploded on impact, killing him instantly. The day's event sparked a strong hatred towards Spa for a lot of drivers, including the legendary Jim Clark, and very understandably so. 2 drivers dying on track was too much by anyone's standards. Despite a campaign from drivers calling for safety improvements, it wasn't until 3 years later that safety rails were installed in 1963. Even then, they weren't enough to prevent further tragedies. Throughout the 1960s, 8 more drivers would lose their lives at Spa. Among them was a near-fatal accident involving Sir Jackie Stewart, who crashed his BRM at Master Kink Corner, ending up upside down in a nearby farm field. Stewart, miraculously surviving with only broken ribs and a car leaking fuel, was pulled from the wreckage. His frustration was so intense that he began taping a spanner to his steering wheel as a form of protest. This accident marked a turning point. With Stewart leading the Grand Prix Drivers Association, the coalition demanded drastic safety changes. After a 1969 visit to Spa, Stewart was so appalled by the lack of progress that the drivers and teams boycotted the race that year. Though Formula One would return to Spa in 1970, the track still fell short of safety standards, and it would be a long 13 years before it was back on the calendar. Now, when Formula One returned to Spa-Francorchamps in 1983, it found a vastly different circuit from the one that had seen so much tragedy in the past. The legendary 14.9 kilometer layout was replaced by a more manageable 7.004 kilometer track that closely resembles the Spa we know today. The redesign aimed to slow down the cars and boost safety, marking a new era for the circuit. Yet even with these changes, danger still lurked, particularly at Eau Rouge, one of the track's most infamous corners. The barrier at the top of Eau Rouge was perilously close to the track, forcing drivers to approach the corner with extra caution. In 1992, during the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps, Ayrton Senna demonstrated remarkable heroism. Eric Comas had a severe crash at Blanchimont, and Senna, who was on the track at the time, immediately stopped his car and ran to help Comas. Senna reached the incident before the medical team, switched off the engine to prevent a potential fire, and held Comas's head in a stable position until help arrived. This quick thinking and bravery potentially saved Comas from further injury. In 1993, Alex Zanardi, with his active suspension failed, ploughed straight into the Eau Rouge barrier, suffering a severe concussion and a lot of other injuries. The crash was so violent that it stretched his neck. Zanardi endured 18 times the normal fatal level of G-force, leading to dizziness, confusion and partial paralysis that kept him out for the rest of the season. In response to these dangers, Spa underwent further modifications in 1994, prompted by the fatal accidents of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger at Imola. A chicane was added between Eau Rouge and Raidillon to enhance safety. However, this addition was short-lived. By 1995, the chicane was removed and Eau Rouge was reinstated with improved runoff areas and the barriers pushed further back. The following years saw more explosive racing, literally at times. In 1998, the race began with surprising calm as all the cars navigated the first turn without incident. But as they hurtled down the next straight, the storm unleashed its fury. David Coulthard lost control of his McLaren, skidding through the waterlogged track and smashing into the wall before careering back onto the circuit. The aftermath was a nightmare. 13 drivers were entangled in the carnage, leading to a red flag that halted the race for over an hour while the wreckage was cleared. The damage was staggering, with the cleanup costing around $13 million. When the race finally resumed, the drama continued. Mika Häkkinen spun out on the restart's first corner, only to be hit by Johnny Herbert. Damon Hill briefly seized the lead, but Michael Schumacher quickly overtook him. Schumacher looked set for victory until he encountered Coulthard's stricken McLaren while lapping him. The heavy spray from the rain obscured his vision, causing Schumacher to crash into Coulthard. With Schumacher out of the picture, Hill reclaimed the lead and went on to secure a dramatic victory. Furious about losing the race, Schumacher stormed down the pit lane and confronted Coulthard in the McLaren garage. The situation escalated to the point where Schumacher had to be physically restrained to prevent a fight. In the 1999 Belgian Grand Prix, Jacques Villeneuve had a dramatic crash at Raidillon in qualifying, calling it "my best ever crash." His teammate, Ricardo Zonta, had a similar accident during practice. It was later revealed that Villeneuve and Zonta had a personal bet to see who could take the corner flat out. Blanchimont turn has seen serious accidents over the years. The most recent, in 2001, involved Luciano Berti losing his front wing in a clash with Eddie Irvine. With reduced downforce and steering, Berti veered off at 298 km/h and crashed into the tyre wall, the impact knocking him out and burying the car in tyres. During the 2012 Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps, Fernando Alonso's title hopes took a hit after a multi-car crash involving his car, which significantly impacted his championship aspirations. At the 2016 Belgian Grand Prix, Kevin Magnussen experienced a high-speed crash at Eau Rouge, showcasing the extreme risks drivers face at this challenging part of the circuit. In 2017, Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon nearly collided at Eau Rouge during the Belgian Grand Prix, a close call that underscored the tension and proximity of racing at this iconic corner. The 2018 Belgian Grand Prix saw a dramatic multi-car crash involving Fernando Alonso and Charles Leclerc, with Alonso's car flying over Leclerc's halo, a testament to the halo's effectiveness in enhancing driver safety. Now, despite the efforts to make Eau Rouge and Raidillon safer, tragedy has continued to strike at this perilous section of the track. Over the past 20 years, many lives have been lost at this spot in various motorsport categories. The most recent victims were Anthoine Hubert in 2019 and Dilano van Hoff in 2023. Anthoine Hubert's accident was particularly heartbreaking. His car hit the barriers and bounced back onto the track, where he was tragically struck by Juan Manuel Correa's car. This crash led to Hubert's death and left Correa with severe injuries. In response, Formula One made changes to the circuit to prevent cars from rebounding onto the track. The next day, Charles Leclerc secured his first F1 Grand Prix win and dedicated the victory to Hubert in a heartfelt tribute. Meanwhile, Gasly honoured Hubert by describing him as one of his best mates. During the 2020 Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps, Antonio Giovinazzi crashed at the Pouhon corner, a challenging and fast section of the circuit. Giovinazzi lost control of his Alfa Romeo, skidding off the track and crashed into the barriers. However, Dilano van Hoff's death was a stark reminder of the risks inherent at Eau Rouge. The circumstances eerily mirrored an incident from 2021 when Lando Norris had a massive crash at the same corner during a very wet qualifying session. The track was deemed too dangerous for the race that weekend, leading to a 3-lap run under the safety car with half points awarded. And look what happened in 2023, and the conditions for the Freca Race 2 at the Belgium GP were similarly treacherous. Despite the dangerous weather, the FIA allowed the junior drivers to race on the hazardous track. This decision proved fatal as Dilano lost control in the poor visibility, stopping in the middle of the track. Other drivers struggling with the same low visibility were unable to avoid him, leading to the tragic outcome. Throughout the years, there have been a lot of drivers that called for changes at Spa, but a few of them were especially vocal after Dilano's death. Alpine driver Pierre Gasly stated that we should never be in such situations of losing young talent, adding that it's not the first time and it shouldn't have taken place. Gasly concurred that the region surrounding the circuit is risky and continued, It kind of reminds me of situations I've been in the younger categories in Spa, in the similar conditions, and being fully honest, there were times I did feel in massive danger just with poor visibility and various situations where it just feels pretty unsafe. Lance Stroll called for changes to the circuit. He expressed his concern, stating, "It's not fair what happened, and that corner needs to be looked at and changed because we lost 2 young talents in like 5 years. It needs to be changed. Seriously, we need to think about what to do with that corner, as it's never fun going through there. Every time we go through there, we put our lives on the line." Fernando Alonso, who knows a thing or two about crashes, said, "I don't know really if it's the track or it's just the speed, and the visibility. I think the biggest thing is the visibility. The visibility is that poor that we cannot drive in certain circuits at certain speed." Now, it's surprising that Fernando Alonso, an exceptional driver, has never won this iconic race. Despite his impressive career and skill, this particular circuit had eluded him throughout his racing history. Nobody's denying that Spa-Francorchamps is undeniably iconic, or that its reputation for delivering spectacular races is well earned. But when the pursuit of entertainment repeatedly overshadows safety, it inevitably creates unease over time. As the years roll on and the same concerns persist, it's only natural for apprehension to grow. So, do you think Spa needs any changes? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe to Formula Royale for the best F1 content. Goodbye for now.